Now then, you're very welcome back. So we're going to turn to GAA. The lay of the land in the All-Ireland football series as follows. From the weekend just gone, Group 2, we had Galway beating Tyrone by 16 points to 13, albeit Tyrone down to 14 men after Frank Burns was red-carded on 18 minutes. Later 13 men, by the way. Niall Morgan was off and Peter Hart ended up in goal. In Group 1, Mayo, result of the weekend, 119 to 17 points in Killarney, a 5-point win against Kerry. In Group 4, Donegal, I think most people were predicting a rolling over and dying type All-Ireland football series on their part, but they went down to Ennis and they won 14 points to 9. And then, well, Kildare continued to confuse. 14 points apiece with Sligo draw. Sligo scored the last 3 points of that game to get the point on the board in Group 3. Very happy to say Colm Boyle, 4-time All-Star at Mayo, is with us. Good evening.
Yo, how you doing?
Very well. Just on Galway Tyrone, the Frank Burns shoulder to the head, Jack Glynn, of Jack Glynn. It's interesting. I'm seeing reports that Fergal Logan is hinting of an appeal. This is like a rich, grand tradition in Gaelic games, and I know there was one of these in a Dublin Mayo. It may have been the COVID final, but certainly one of those games, or maybe a semi-final, similar kind of vibe as well. You see it in club games up and down the country. You've been watching it in GAA for years. A guy is blindsided, eyes on the ball, and opposition player sees that, lines him up a long way out, knows he's about to turn into him but isn't braced, and it's a smash. And the game allows for that. The game does allow for that, but if it's mistimed at all, then it's very, very dangerous. And in this instance, Glynn doesn't come back out for the second half. I just wonder if that tackle, which is allowed for, just needs to be cut out, that blindsided hit, because it is so dangerous increasingly.
Yeah, it's a difficult one to know, Joe. As a player, I used to love physical contact. I used to love getting in, seeing opportunities to make hits, make tackles as much as possible. There's no doubt about it, that is a dangerous one. If I was Frank Burns in that situation, I would have lined up the exact same hit as Frank did, because the opportunity was there to do it. If you watch it as Frank is approaching, and this goes back to what you were saying, it's literally, we're talking a millisecond here. As Frank Burns approaches Jack Glynn, body position is all right, it's perfect. Jack Glynn is side on, ready to take the hit, or Frank Burns is ready to give the hit. And as Jack collects the ball, he just adjusts his body position to face forward. And unfortunately, it's too late for that stage for Frank Burns. He's already committed. And then you see that collision and what happened. And it is a very, very dangerous tackle. The one you referenced there, I think it's Owen McLaughlin, the one you might be talking about in the semi-final in 2021, John Small.
Yes.
Again, a very similar scenario, and I know Paddy Andrews was talking about this yesterday in the football about. He had won with Niall Morgan a couple of years back in a league game. It's a different one for me, Joe, because I love physical contact and I love the big hits, and I loved it as a player. I got great energy from it. I got great energy if one of my teammates made a big hit and a big tackle. But there is a big danger from it, there's no doubt about it. And maybe
it's a real quintessential GAA hit as well, and the crowd loves it. Everyone sees it coming, and it's boom, and it's I left one on him. It's a bit, the equivalent in soccer of I got the ball but I took him out as well. It's allowed for, but the dangers if you don't time it right, well, they were laid bare obviously with Glynn.
And that is the thing, Joe, and you can do 98% of it perfect as a tackler. You can get your timing right, absolutely, but if that player coming into possession changes his body position as you were about to hit him, that's where the problem lies. And unfortunately, that's what happened Jack Glynn the last day, and you do see it on a regular basis for sure. Yeah,
and you think at this stage still, most players in Burns' situation, Frank Burns' situation, they would still say this is a great opportunity to get a big hit in. They're not running up there and putting on the brakes and just trying, making a more generic tackle. You still think most players are encouraged to make that smash?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And if you think of the game itself, Joe, it was a fairly flat game, and Galway were a couple of points up at the time, but Tyrone had made a kind of flat start to the game. So as a player, I'd nearly be looking at injecting a small bit of energy into my team. And how do I do that? Sometimes you just make a tackle or you make a hit.
Yeah.
And if the opportunity is there, if that hit is pulled off, it's a perfectly timed tackle, Tyrone pick up the ball, kick it over the bar. You could be talking about that after the game as the moment that almost changed the game. There was an energy in the team, there was an energy in the crowd. So it does have that effect for sure, but unfortunately when it goes wrong like it did the last day, like you're talking about an appeal there, I suppose nothing should shock you with the appeal process in the GAA, but I'd be fairly shocked if he gets off this one. I think it is dangerous play. I don't think there's any getting out of that.
Speaking of flat performances, let's turn to Killarney and Kerry. I thought Kevin McStay, it was like the greatest advertisement of all time for just like getting out of the provincials early, because the way he talked about Mayo's lead up to this game sounded beautiful. So he was saying, you know, obviously we didn't plan it, but I gave the lads then 2 weeks off after the defeat to Roscommon. A whole host of them got away and got 2 weeks of sunshine. Then we came back and we said, right lads, let's go again. Nice 4 week leading time, block of training, and look at the results. I mean, why would you be slogging your guts out in a provincial?
Well, we were talking about this last week, Joe, about Derry and Armagh and kind of what they went through and Clonus last Sunday compared to obviously the likes of a Mayo and Tyrone, who were just obviously rested and ready to go. And you could see that in Mayo's play, like the energy they started that game, Joe. Now, don't get me wrong, they were helped by a very, very flat Kerry performance, and why that was, I suppose we don't know, but Mayo were bouncing off the ground. They looked like a team who were ready to announce, yeah, by the way, we're still in this championship. And in a way, maybe it was just an ideal game for them. Maybe if it was Loud or maybe if it was Cork in the first game, you mightn't have seen that bounce or that energy from Mayo. But maybe after being out of the championship for 6 weeks, they got this news probably about 2 weeks ago that it was Kerry and Killarney. Like, that's one to get the juices flowing as a Mayo player, and you could see it. You could see it right from the start of the game. You know, they were in Kerry's faces. They had 2 goal chances in the first 5 minutes, Joe, and even though they don't take them, it kind of rocked Kerry, and it almost rocked the crowd. You could hear there was a lot of moans and groans in the crowd. People were kind of wondering what the hell was going on here, and you could see that in the pitch. And Mayo, in fairness, you know, were obviously they were full worthy of their win, but yeah, they were really, really good. Without blowing it out of proportion, Joe, I would say as a full 70-minute performance, I'd say from a Mayo point of view, that's the best I can remember Mayo playing in a big game against the likes of a Dublin Kerry since possibly the All-Ireland final in 2017. And I know people might say, well, that's a game Mayo lost, but I think most people will recognise that as maybe one of the best games over the last 10 years and the quality of football by both teams. So I think Mayo got to a really, really good level last Saturday, there's no doubt about it.
What in particular did you like, aside from the physical energy?
I thought their skills, Joe. I thought some of their scores, some of their off the shoulder running, their hands, like the goal. The goal is a typical example, Joe, of kind of where Mayo were 6 weeks ago against Roscommon and where they were last Saturday evening. Like, if you remember the first 10 minutes against Roscommon, they 2 gilt-edged goal chances. One of them is a simple enough hand pass for Ryan O'Donoghue to Tommy Conroy. He puts it out too far in front of him, sends Tommy Conroy wide, and the goal chance is gone. Last Saturday, 10 minutes to go, Ryan gets the ball in the corner, works his way inside. It's a beautiful left-handed hand pass into Omid Loughlin, running right onto his path, who's broke the line, and he sticks it in its back and net. And it was just them small things, Joe, the skill execution for Mayo. I thought their hands, I thought their kicking, like I said, their timing off the shoulder, their running off the shoulder was of a top quality last Saturday. I really, really liked it. Loved their energy that they brought. Kerry, don't get me wrong, made it easy for Mayo.
Yeah.
Made it, like, I don't think I've seen a Kerry team as poor as track and runners as what I've seen last Saturday, I should say. And
one last one on Mayo. I'd say certainly top 5. I was about to say the most criticised footballer of the last decade. We'll go top 5, Aidan O'Shea. So he picked up another Man of the Match award. He's basically been played in every game by McStay. McStay has clearly decided to make this guy feel very central to things, and that full forward line looks to suit him. Not to be critical of him, I think there were probably All-Ireland finals where as games wore on in midfield, the greyhounds like James McCarthy might start to get away from Aidan O'Shea a touch, but in that full forward line, when he knows what his job is and he's well able to do it, I mean, it's obvious McStay thought that was his best position from minute one.
Oh yeah, and look, Kevin McStay has been saying this through the media for years. What I really liked about how they used him the last day, and a lot about the league, is just how simple the ball was onto him. Like, I'd say they hand passed the ball into him 4 or 5 times, and Aidan's body position, as if he gets his yard or two in front, his wingspan is so big that he'll just keep hold the marker off and he'll win the ball. So he's before. Now I do feel Kerry got their matchups all wrong. Like, I was in Castlebar the night Mayo played Kerry in the league, and Aidan was brilliant that night as well, back in February. Jason Foley marked him for the first half. You know, you could see Foley wasn't sharp. Kerry weren't long back. They moved Dylan Casey onto Aidan at half time, and it was a complete, absolute mismatch. And I was shocked that Jack O'Connor went with Dylan Casey last Saturday evening. There's just some mismatch or some matchups that don't work. And Dylan Casey and Aidan Maché, for me, was never going to work. And I think Aidan made hay in the first half. I think Foley actually did better in the second half on Aidan, but the damage was kind of done at that stage. And Mayo's groove, Mayo were already in the groove, and Aidan was in the groove. So yeah, but for Aidan, he looked really, really good. Thing about Aidan is how well he's striking the ball, like from marks, free kicks. He looked so confident. I think he's added that element into his game now, and there's no doubt about it, he's leading up front. And obviously James Carr and Ryan O'Donoghue as well were really, really good the last day.
Yeah, and there's been a couple of boys like Durkin on the bench as well, which is interesting.
Yeah, interesting. To me, that was a pre-planned move. Obviously, we don't know if Paddy was injured, but Sam Callan, I have to give a special mention. He comes off in 45 minutes for Paddy Durkin at 19 years of age to put in a performance like he did for 45 minutes, marking one of the best forwards in the country in Sean O'Shea. Like, he was exceptional, and his last play of the game is actually to stop Clifford's goal chance, one of Clifford's goal chance, and tip it wide off the goal line. So he had an exceptional game. I mean, you consider Mayo have lost Keegan, they've lost obviously Oshie Mullins the last couple of years. To see a player like that coming through at 19 years of age and put a performance in what I think was a championship debut down in Killarney, marking O'Shea, he was exceptional. And obviously Paddy Durkin came in and brought a huge energy to the team after that.
So we've alluded to Kerry on several occasions there. You can't separate the two performances. I suspect the moans and groans you heard from the crowd were born out of the sense that, well, Kerry, when are you going to start this year? Like, what are we waiting for? I mean, okay, you win your All-Ireland, that's great. I mean, join the club down here in Kerry, everyone has one. And then it's like you take the league off, okay, we'll allow that, and then we're into Munster. And now, like, this was the day to actually go again. And they're completely off the physical pitch, which is, yeah, that's kind of unacceptable at championship level. And then the other point, I suppose, you talk about Mayo and the brilliant running off the shoulder and the goal chances they created. Like, it felt last year Kerry made their defence under Jack O'Connor a kind of defining aspect of what they were about. We're not going to be a soft touch anymore. And Roscommon gave you the template. Like, there's a way to defend against Mayo, and it's not to allow them run off the shoulder and have pace in the attack. It's to really slow it down and see can they break you down. So, like, that Kerry performance by the standard of All-Ireland champions is the pits.
It was really, really poor, Joe. And I think one thing we're all wondering about Kerry at the start of the year, where are they going to come with something different, change up their kind of defensive structure or whatnot. Like the Tadhg Morley, not experiment, it's one thing in Ireland, but I think they're teams are figuring that out now, and you could see Jack Carney the last day just made hay at 11. He was dragging Morley all over the place, and Morley wasn't sure if he should go with them or sit in the hole, and Jack Carney was so influential along with Matty Ruane and Jimmy O'Connor in the middle of the pitch and caused havoc, especially in that first half, until I think Adrian Spillane came into the team at half time. But you're right, Joe, I think it's more than just the defensive structure, and Tadhg Morley and defend, like Foley doesn't look to me like he's informed. Tom O'Sullivan defensively doesn't look like he's informed. Ryan O'Donoghue got the better of him in the first half for sure. But as a unit, like if you go back to the All-Ireland final, Joe, and you remember Stephen O'Brien in that first half, makes a massive block on Johnny Heaney, preventing a goal chance, makes another block on Paul Conroy after that. And that was going on all throughout the team. They were defending as a unit. The last day, there was just runners coming from everywhere that were coming on track. Like I said it to you earlier on, I've never seen a Kerry team let so many players go like they were in the first half. I may have 5 goal chances from that.
Yeah.
At the 4 of them were definitely from untracked runners. So concerning from a Kerry point of view, but they have time to fix it. That's the thing. Is it a hunger thing? Is it a structural thing? Maybe it's a slight combination of both. Maybe there was a slight bit of arrogance in Kerry that, you know, we're at home now in Killarney, lovely sunny day, we're going to turn it on here. And maybe they just weren't ready for that focus and intensity that came their way from Mayo.
Notable exception, of course, being Clifford, akin to the Tyrone performance. He scores 8 points, 5 from play. So, I mean, I would think he's had a very difficult couple of weeks and a very draining couple of weeks, and he managed to show up and perform like that. And so with Kerry now, like, I presume we're past the it's still shadowboxing excuse.
Yeah, we are. Just on Clifford, like, what an example of literally putting a team up in your back and trying to carry the fight to the opposition. He was sensational, absolutely sensational. And even a player like him will look back on Sunday or Monday and think, how did one of them three not go, a chance to not go in? And maybe if one of them goes in, we could be having a different conversation, Joe. But yeah, from a Kerry point of view, it's slightly worrying. What I do feel they've done now, they're still very much in the race to win this All-Ireland, but they're going after it the hard way now. They're definitely going after it. Things have got definitely harder for Kerry to win the All-Ireland. Obviously, if assuming things in sport is very dangerous, but you assume Mayo win the group, assume Kerry get to a playoff, and assuming they win that playoff, they are looking at a Galway, Dublin, or possibly a Derry in a quarter-final.
Yeah.
And their route to get back to where they want to be has become an awful lot harder, and they won't beat any of them three teams playing like they did last Saturday evening, that's for sure. But look, they have time to get themselves together. Yeah,
it's all very strange. You'd love to know what's going on behind the scenes there, because it's not a Jack O'Connor side. I mean, certain things you'd almost put alongside a team under O'Connor, and effort and intensity and a grisly aspect would be chief amongst them.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, for sure. And everything you would associate with Kerry, that was there last year. And that kind of goes back to the way their forwards were tackling, runners. Like, there's no way they would have let Mayo do that this time last year. Yeah. Absolutely no way. Is it a hunger thing, Joe? That could be the thing. Is the desire there? Have the hard yards put in over the last 3 or 4 months? I don't know. I think one thing that did stick out to me last Saturday is you really see what a Kerry team without David Moore looks like, because they pressed the living daylights out of Mayo in that first half on the Mayo kick-out, and Mayo were just getting the long kick-outs off every single time, or the majority of the time, and Kerry looked so open at the back of Mayo won those kick-outs. And it actually spooked Kerry, Joe, because they completely changed their tactics in the second half, and they conceded most of the kick-outs, which was something you never see Kerry do. So that would be a worry for me, you know, how much kind of damage that's done to Kerry's confidence, and something they were normally really, really good at.
It's a great point. I haven't heard many people point to the Kerry press and David Moran's importance to it, but he cleans up 5, 6, 7 of those balls, no problem.
It's a different game. All of a sudden, Mayo are on the back foot and defending, instead of obviously the other way around.
Kildare Sligo, I don't know if you saw this game in full.
I saw just bits of it on Sunday game.
It's interesting. Tony McEntee, after the Connacht final, which was obviously a difficult day for Sligo, he said, listen, our target is just to get one win. That's a great sense of progression for us. Now, they managed to get a draw against Kildare. I suspect he's happy about that. They scored the last 3 points of that game. So again, that's really something for them to build on, and it redeems the season. Like, that defeat to Galway, the manner of it doesn't loom as large now. I mean, for Kildare, I don't know what to make of this group, and even Glenn Ryan can moan about Croke Park and all these kind of things, but like, there's just something off with them, or maybe we overestimate how much talent they have. Like, I'm from Kildare, so I can be a bit harsher on my own. Like, I keep hearing how talented this group are, so they're either not as talented as people are saying, or they're underachieving.
Yeah. First of all, Joe, I was at the Connacht final. I was on that day with yourself, and I said that I really feared for Sligo going into the group stage of getting 3 maybe possibly bad beatings. But the last day, like, they were brilliant. They fully deserved their draw, if not a win on top of that. Granted, I know they come back into the game later on to get the draw, but for Kildare, like, you're thinking they're after you thought they're after taking a couple of steps forward. That performance against Dublin, granted they fade away with 15 minutes to go, but that can happen against Dublin. But to go down to Sligo and kind of deliver such a abject performance, I just don't know where that leaves them, Joe, to be honest. Where that leaves them going into the Roscommon game, into the Dublin game. Like, they're in a real battle now to get into a playoff position, which is something I think they would have thought, we're definitely going to finish at least third here. They're in a proper battle now. So I don't know, Joe. They are a frustrating team. Yeah, I know. Look, you're from Kildare, so you know a lot more about it than me. But they were a team, from playing against them over the years, you just never knew on a particular day what you were going to get. Obviously, they bet us in 2018. You didn't know after that or before that if they were going to show up or if they weren't. And if they do show up, they could literally shoot the lights out. Yeah. But on any given day, that wasn't guaranteed.
Because that day in 18 felt like the start of something, and here we are. Next weekend we have Louth Cork. That's in Group 1. That's in Mayo and Kerry's group. We have Armagh against Westmeath. That's in the Galway Tyrone group. We have Derry Monaghan, which catches the eye. That's in Donegal, Clare's group. And then on the Sunday, Dublin Roscommon in Group 3, which is Sligo and Kildare's group. So that's the weekend ahead. Early sense of this All-Ireland series?
Look, I really enjoyed Mayo Kerry for obvious reasons. I thought some of the rest of it kind of went under the radar. Galway was a disappointing game, Joe, in kind of numerous aspects. It never caught fire. The sending off, the weather, up in a damp, dreary day up on Salt Hill doesn't allow for good football. So, look, at early days, the Mayo Kerry game was a cracker.
Such a busy weekend to try and capture the public imagination as well.
Exactly. I think maybe it might be only later on, possibly if we get to a last game. But again, because there's very little jeopardy on a lot of the games that's been played, we mightn't see that full excitement until we get to a playoff. And then, okay, there's real jeopardy in this. And obviously, it's knockout from then on. So I think that might be when we only see the quality of the excitement kick in, I think.
Okay. Let's chat next week. Thanks, Emil.
Perfect, Joe. Thank you.
Cheers. Colm Boyle with us there on the line, and our Gaelic football coverage and Off the Ball is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the GAA Senior Football Championship. Check out #TheToughest for more. And if you're looking for loads more GAA talk on Off the Ball, the Football Pod is the place to go. You'll find that on your podcast network, your feed, wherever you get your podcast from. That's Tommy and Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue.
Gaelic football.